All righty, so Tara, look, there's so much that I need to talk to you about. I want to start by talking about, as an example, what's going on with Donald Trump, with Kamala Harris, with the entire debate issue that has been plaguing, as far as I'm concerned, the airwaves for a long time now. Why don't you do me a favor? Give me your assessment of just how poorly you think that Donald Trump did during this past debate.
Well, it was a certifiable ass kicking, as my good friend Michael Steele said on MSNBC, that he got his ass spanked. And I don't know, maybe she should have spanked it with a Forbes magazine, and he would have agreed to do another debate. But he doesn't want to do another debate because he knows how badly he lost. And if you don't believe me, you can just look at the way MAGA has responded to this, the way that the right-wing media has responded to this. I mean, they're going so far as to acknowledging that he lost, but blaming everything from that she had an earpiece to she got the questions to the David Mears hair to witchcraft. That's real. Some MAGA preachers claimed that it was witchcraft that caused Donald Trump to perform so badly. I mean, it was probably the most, I would say that was probably the worst debate that I've seen anyone outside of what happened with Biden. Obviously, that's an anomaly. But like in the 30 years I've been in politics, I've never seen someone destroy another opponent like that in a presidential debate the way Kamala Harris did. And before the debates, I said, I predicted that she would use her prosecutorial skills to cross-examine Donald Trump, which he hadn't been at this level in front of this many people. What was it? 67 plus million people watched this thing?
From what I'm hearing now, over 74 million people. Just in America alone.
Right. That's right.
This debate.
And that doesn't even really count people. I mean, they, who watch on their phones and stuff. Like it's more difficult to even follow that. DVR, right. Watch it later.
Or as Donald would say, they TiVo it.
TiVoed it, yeah. It's the very 90s of him. Or early 2000s, right? But like I said, that he has never been cross-examined in front of the American people at this level, the way he would be on that debate stage. Because it was really just Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, and the American people. And he was exposed. He was legitimately exposed. And the fact that she walked over to him and shook his hand was such a boss move. Because he had no plans on shaking her hand and being a gentleman and being like, in good faith like most normal human beings in a situation like that. No, because he saw him go right behind the podium. So she had to adjust. Because normally they would come in front of the podium, shake hands, and then go to their respective places. No, his bitch ass went right behind, and she walked right over to him with authority, shook his hand, Kamala Harris. And he was knocked off kilter from the very beginning. She asserted herself as an alpha, and he wasn't the alpha, and I loved it.
She was definitively the alpha female. In this debate. But what I always found to be confusing is that your entire existence rides upon the success or the failure of this political race. If he wins, all of this negative shit, all of these outstanding 3 indictments, the 34 guilty counts by the Manhattan DA's case, it all goes away. I get it. He'll still be a felon, but he'll never serve time. There will be no repercussions or accountability for his illegal actions. So with everything riding on it, do or die, his finances, his family's name, the reputation, his freedom, he still chose not to spend a single solitary minute preparing for the debate.
No.
But then again, you have Kamala Harris, who was widely being praised for her commitment to this debate's preparation. brought in people to act as Donald Trump, brought in consultants. My buddy Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, was brought in to sort of give. I wish they would have brought me in. To be honest, look, Anthony's a fucking genius. Let's just be clear about that.
He's a smart guy.
He's brilliant.
Yep.
However, there's things that I would have done that would have additionally unnerved Donald. For example, let me give you an easy one. If I was the Harris campaign, and if they have a second debate, which I don't think that they're going to.
Well, he said no, but I don't know if he's going to be able to take being called a coward and all of that in so long. Maybe he'll change his mind, but we'll see.
Yeah, or better to be called a coward than an idiot, right? Okay, so here's what I would do. I would have invited Michael Cohen to the spin room. Michael, don't do anything. Don't say anything. Don't give quote. Just be there. Come with a clipboard or a book, sit there, pretend like you're taking notes and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Imagine the folks from the Trump camp that were there. Remember, we did that to Hillary Clinton.
I remember.
During the debate at Hofstra University.
I remember.
New York, when we invited the three women that had the affair with Bill, that would claim to have sexually had affairs with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
They should have done the same thing. Could you imagine? Somebody would have said to him, just so you know, Michael Cohen's in the spin room, because they would have to tell him. Right. And so on. That would unnerve him. Why? Because I happen to be, not to praise myself, but I'm going to, I happen to be the only person who has been successful on behalf of the city, or I should say the state or government, held this man accountable. You see, I say on behalf of government. Unlike E. Jean Carroll, it's not for me.
Right.
I'm just a non-party subpoenaed witness. But it was me as a key witness in both a civil and a criminal trial. I'm the only one that's been able to hold him accountable. And that would unnerve him. It would piss him off that I was there.
And so also because and because he doesn't know what you told them, and he knows that you know so much about him, all the way down to the flip-flap-flop with the hair. Every time I see he makes comments about hair, I think of you in your book where you describe that whole routine.
Flip-flap-flop.
The flip-flap-flop.
Yes. Flip-flap-flop. A whole chapter.
I know. And and every time I see that, or he makes comments about his appearance, or, again, fire the makeup artist. Oh, wait, that's him. With the color,
I do want to say, Tara, quite frankly, you're pretty nasty, okay? You're pretty nasty yourself. All right.
I said something about this, about him and the whole, makeup thing. But for someone, because he keeps going after Kamala, right? And the whole, is she black or not? And that it's just, such a bizarre line of attack in his mind. But for someone who disparages people of color as much as he does, he sure as hell tries really hard to look like one. Yeah. Because he was darker than her. He's darker than I am with that shit color that he puts on his face. I don't know what he's doing. I don't understand who tells him this looks good. I don't. Oh, that was another complaint, Tara, by the way. The camera angles were bad.
You're very nasty, Tara. Okay?
Yeah.
You're just nasty.
Yeah,
so
I'm nasty.
So look, Kamala was actually praised for her clarity.
Yes, she was great.
Issues like healthcare, on foreign policy, and so on.
Yes.
What specific moments do you think resonated most with the undecided voters? And where do you think that Trump failed to counter Kamala effectively?
Well,
other than everything.
Yeah, I'll start with the latter. He really did not counter anything she said effectively, except if I'm going to give him any points, it was in his closing statement. Because that's their strongest position. Whether it's true or not about the state of the economy, perception is what matters in politics. And the perception is that the economy is terrible and people are suffering and prices are too high. And the reasons for that, most people don't have, they don't pay attention to what's behind all of that. They just see that gas prices are high, inflation's up, but it's actually not. We just saw the headline in the Wall Street Journal that showed that inflation's at its lowest point in 3 years. But it's not trickling down because of in the perception game, because of gas prices, in interest rates, and groceries being, food prices being on the up and up, right? So they're like, So you can use the economy. That's still the issue that is the strongest for Donald Trump, whether it's fair or not. But he hasn't. Instead, he's using the border and otherizing immigrants and the brown menace. Like, that's his bread and butter. That's what he started his campaign on when he came down the stupid escalator in 2015. That's what they've used throughout the common thread throughout Donald Trump's presidency and his campaigns is otherizing immigrants and people of color. That is to the point where the most bizarre moment in the whole debate, which there were a few, but this was the most bizarre, was this stupid, god-awful, despicable conspiracy theory about Haitian immigrants and pets being abducted and eaten or whatever the fuck in Ohio. 99.9% of the American people who were watching that debate had no idea what he was talking about. None. Thankfully. But
that wasn't that was not the first time that he
has
spewed this stupidity in the past.
Trust me, but I'm just saying that,
aren't you of Haitian descent?
I am not. No, I am not. But the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, is, and she took umbrage with it and was very visibly pissed off about it during the White House briefing, and rightfully so, because it's a terrible attack on a community of immigrants that were in the country legally, by the way, that they just conflated this god-awful conspiracy theory that originated from, a different town in Ohio with one crazy woman who was a Black woman, American citizen, had some kind of horrible, gruesome thing. Obviously, she was mentally off with a cat. Some Nazi sympathizers in Ohio took that story, conflated it with a couple things in Springfield, Ohio, and it turned into this god-awful, terrible, racist conspiracy theory that Donald Trump actually repeated on national television in a presidential debate.
So I had an argument with a friend of mine. We were talking about it, and I said, look, I obviously know Donald better than almost anybody. And I said, there's no way in the world that he's going to repeat that stupidity again. Not on a presidential debate stage when the entire voting country is going to be watching. Forget about international. That there's no way that he's going to be that stupid. I'm sure if anything came out of the limited debate prep that he did, don't talk about Haitians, don't talk about Springfield, Ohio, don't talk about eating cats and dogs and so on. By the way, the reason why I was joking with you and asked you if you have any Haitian in you is because I do know you're a cat lover.
Oh, yes.
I was going to ask you if you were vegetarian as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I am a cat lover. Everyone knows that follows me that I have my beloved cat Tiki, who's 17 and a half. And at the Seneca Project, we've embraced the whole cat lady thing after JD Vance started it. We have merch about cat ladies. We have our mug, This Cat Lady Votes. Like, we are, like, the fact that they're trying to co-opt this now, which is what tells me that there was some calculation here, I think, by some of the people there, at least in the social media space, because now they're trying to co-opt this whole thing as if like Donald Trump is somehow a champion for cats and dogs. And you, of all people, know that he hates pets. He hates cats and dogs. And the guy's a megalomaniac to the point where he can't understand why people have pets, because he can't love anything unconditionally other than himself, not even his own kids. Right. I was going to say, not even his own children. So
he hates people too.
So this idea that Donald Trump is somehow some champion to support cats is so fucking ridiculous that it's laughable. If it weren't so sick and grotesque. But it go back to the debate. The reason why I think, Michael, that he did that, even though I'm sure there were many sane people who told him don't do this under any circumstances, besides being a petulant child who does the opposite of what people tell him to do. If you tell him don't do it, he's going to do it, right? He's surrounding himself with despicable people like Laura Loomer, and, because he can't get the best people anymore, because they don't want anything to do with him. So he's surrounding himself with the F-listers, not even the D, like these are the F-lister, disgusting people like Laura Loomer, who are implanting this shit in his brain. And Kamala Harris had him off kilter from the beginning. So even if he had planned on maybe not saying it, he was already riled up where he was like in rally mode, right? His default is that angry, pissed off, rah, rah, rah. He just goes back to the rallies because his debate performance was like a condensed version of what he says at his rallies, because that's all he knows. It's like a comedian that does a bad routine, but just like keeps repeating it over and over and over again because that's what they practiced. And so he's like, that's where I'm going to go. It works for some people. She knocked him on his ass from the very first, even when she was a little nervous in the beginning, in the first 5 minutes, she still nailed him and he had no comeback for it. He took the bait every time. So I think she did a great job.
So, okay, look, Tara. You and I go back now many years. In fact, you were one of, my almost like originals, right, on this Mea Culpa podcast. Believe it or not, over 4 years ago now.
It's crazy.
Like over 400 million downloads later, something like that, some crazy numbers. And I know that you yourself have recently started a whole new venture to save democracy.
Yes.
And I say this to you all the time. You're like, you're an inspirational character, and I don't want to call it character as in like a you're just inspirational.
Thank you.
Tell me about, because you started telling to me when I bumped into you at the DNC, which was so much fun. We had such a great time together. Yeah. You started something called Seneca Project.
Yes.
So do me a favor, tell my listeners, because I was absolutely intrigued. And then I understand that you just put out a video which you entitled Hope. Right?
Yes.
I want to play that video.
Okay.
For those that are going to be watching this on YouTube and Instagram. And then I want to discuss it with you because I think it's that important. And in all fairness, it's that good.
Thank you.
So let's play the clip.
It wasn't easy getting here. The loss, the heartbreak. My wife is tough, resilient. She said, we'll just keep trying. I didn't know much about IVF until we needed it. There were moments when all hope felt lost. But we finally got our miracle. From the moment I held her, I vowed to protect her. If it were up to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, our little girl wouldn't even exist. They don't care about the joys, the sacrifices. They only care about their control over our lives and her future. Who the hell are they to tell us how or when we become moms and dads? We know what's best for our families. It's time to stand together, not with any party, but as parents. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get that. That's why this fall, I'm voting for her. I'm voting for hope.
I mean, it's it gives you goosebumps because obviously this goes right to the heart of Shady Vance and von Schitzenpants's ongoing continuous assault on women's reproductive decision-making rights, on their joy, their glee in the overturning of Roe v. Wade via the Dobbs decision.
Yep. Do
me a favor. Tell my audience, what inspired you to do this video, and give them a little background now on Seneca Project, how you plan to counteract the rising tide of Trump-Vance populism that they're playing off of, specifically amongst women in both rural and conservative communities who traditionally have voted Republican. Mm-hmm. Give us an idea on what's your strategy using Seneca Project for reaching those voters.
So thank you for playing the ad. I'm so proud of this one. We've
just make sure you send the check to Michael Cohen personally.
Yeah. Well, or you could hopefully folks will send checks to us, the Seneca Project, so we can place that ad on the airwaves, because it's really expensive to get these ads on the airwaves, and we need to make sure that the people in the battleground states where this election's going to be won or lost, they need to see these things. They need to see it. What makes the Seneca Project unique and how we started and why. My co-founder, Michelle Kinney, and I, looked at the political landscape and recognized months ago that women were going to be the deciding factor here. And we needed to concentrate on speaking to women, particularly the right of center women who need the permission structure to vote for the Democratic candidate this time around and not fall into the pattern of partisanship or negative partisanship because they voted Republican before, or their husbands voted Republican, or they have trepidation about, at the time it was Biden, but, and Kamala Harris, and now it's Kamala. It doesn't matter. Donald Trump is such an existential threat to not only our democracy, but to us as women. It doesn't matter whether you have an R or a D next to your name. Because of the Dobbs decision, because of what Donald Trump has done by putting Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe, what's happening across the country is an assault on women's rights that transcends party lines. If you're bleeding out in a parking lot, like Kamala Harris brought up, which I was so glad to hear her say, that I think that was the strongest, you asked me earlier, what was the strongest appeal during the debate to moderates and independents? I think her position on reproductive health was really powerful because she mentioned that, women are bleeding out in parking lots and lobbies of emergency rooms because reproductive health care has been criminalized in a bunch of states in this country. And Donald Trump and JD Vance want to take this national. Project 2025 would nationalize this extremism. These abortion bans, don't tell me Donald Trump wouldn't sign a national abortion ban. You're damn right he would. He wouldn't say he wouldn't during the debate. Right. And all of these things, it's bigger than just abortion. So the Seneca Project, when we started it, it's bipartisan. I come from Republican world. I mean, I've renounced the party since 2020, but I'm still right of center in my worldview on things, not the perverse view that MAGA and Republicans stand for now. That's a perverted view of things. But my co-founder, Michelle Kinney, she comes from Democratic world. Our advisory board has people like Congressman Denver Riggleman, who's our favorite girl dad on the board, and Senator Barbara Boxer. We have Rena Shah and Maria Cardona. We have Ruth Ben-Ghiat, the historian. We have Laura Bell Bundy, who's a Tony Award-winning actress and performer, and Alex Borstein, famous for her voice of Lois Griffin on Family Guy. She was also in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Emmy Award winner. I mean, we are representing a broad spectrum of women and our lone resident girl dad, Denver Riggleman, because we know that these girl dads are an important constituency as well. That's why Hope was inspired, because we saw that no one else out there is speaking to the girl dads on the IVF issue from their perspective. We wanted to give voice to that also, because women don't go through this alone. And inspirations like Ryan Hamilton, the husband of the woman who almost died, his wife, he told the story very publicly. He's a radio DJ in Texas, and told the story very publicly what happened to his wife when she was going through a miscarriage and how she almost bled to death on the floor of their bathroom because she was turned away from so many emergency rooms in Texas. These are real stories. And for us at the Seneca Project, we are a women-led organization. We wanted to speak to women, tell women's stories, explain what's at stake for women, not speak at them. Because there's a lot of organizations that speak at women. Right. And we were like, we're tired of that. This moment is too important for women for us our voices to be silenced or to be dismissed as just another political tool. This is literally life or death for women. And so we've had several ads, and everyone can go to Seneca.
By the way, there's what I loved about your video is that, yes, it was narrated in the man's voice, because people do forget that, in a traditional event, you have repercussions on the male side too. God forbid Ryan's wife would have bled out and died. What about him? What about if they have other children? They
do, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the family? What about the siblings, the parents? What about the cousins, the friends? It's not just the one person who passes. People forget that one person's loss is compounded. They always talk about it takes a community to raise a child.
Right. Hillary Clinton famously said that.
It also takes a community to weep for a loss of a life. To bury that person. there's a lot of emotion that a lot of people feel, but that gets lost, but not in your video.
Yes, and Michelle and I co-wrote this together, and she came up with the idea. Michelle's besides being my co-founder, she's our chief creative officer, and so she's really the creative genius behind the ad production, and she's assembled an amazing ad team. We have a couple of different teams depending on the type of video that we do, and we wanted to make sure that our ads did not look like everybody else's political ads, because we wanted them to hit you not only in the heart, but in the head, but in the heart, and that they're right to you, straight to you in both those places with no punches pulled. And when we wrote this script, we talked to a couple friends. I have one of my best friends is an IVF girl dad, and asked him kind of some of the things that hit home for him going through this, not once, but twice with his wife. And the idea of protecting not only their daughters, but their wives. He said, what Donald Trump is trying to do, and JD Vance and these MAGA extremists, is take away our ability as men, as husbands, as fathers, to protect our families by taking these rights away. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those areas, and that pisses us off. And it also pisses us off what happens to our wives. They are the warriors here. They're the ones who go through this, and we're there by their side, and we can only take but so much, but they're the ones that physically go through this too. And we need to, and people need to be reminded of that. And we said, so we took that into consideration. And the initial inspiration for this particular issue was Senator Brian Schatz. He was on the Senate floor a few months ago after IVF was under attack in Alabama, and this became a national issue. People realized that Dobbs, the repercussions from Dobbs and Roe being overturned was more than just abortion. He gave this really impassioned speech on the Senate floor that was really inspirational to Michelle and to me when she showed it to me about this issue, how IVF and how you start a family should never be political. So we've done a bunch of ads. Like I was saying, you can go to senecaproject.us and see them, or on our YouTube channel. We've put them out digitally in the States, but we would like to get them out there more, because now people are paying attention, and it takes lots of money to do that. So thank you to those who have supported us, but we can always use more.
I'm going to post this, and I'm going to ask all my listeners to
please
to follow it on my Instagram account.
Thank you.
My X account, formerly Twitter, and let's really make this thing go viral. But I do want to say, right, there's been a massive polling surge, right, and Kamala's surge in key battleground states like Florida and Michigan.
Florida's not a battleground state, though, which is why it's crazy that this is actually potentially in play.
So Donald Trump was a former New Yorker. New Yorkers fucking hate him, right? And he's going to lose in the state of New York. Could you imagine now he moves down to Florida, which has been a red state for quite a long period of time.
Like 20 years now. Didn't used to be. It used to be purple.
Right. And now it looks like it's it could potentially go blue as well. But battleground states like Florida and Michigan, particularly though with suburban women and black voters. Your video, Roe v. Wade, the Haitian comments that they make, and a whole bunch of other stupid stuff are driving, in my opinion, this shift. So my question to you is, if you were advising the Harris campaign, how would you tell them to continue over the next 50 days or so to leverage the momentum that they have developed from Von Schitzenpants and Shady Vance's stupidity going into the final days of the election?
Well, I would say that they have their communication strategy has been brilliant, because they've done a really good job of taking some like the top 3 issues and putting out content to constantly barrage the American people with defining who Kamala Harris is, making fun of and ridiculing Donald Trump for the lunatic, ignoramus, extremist, dangerous fuck that he is. And then also introducing policy, her position on the economy, her position on reproductive rights, because that is a huge issue in the battleground states. I would argue with you that Florida is not a battleground state. It's it's a kind of a white whale, just like Texas. I mean, recently we just saw polling that showed that Colin Allred is within striking distance of Ted Cruz in Texas. Yeah. So these issues are animating people. It's transcending party lines, as we say at the Seneca Project, because they're looking at this going, wait a minute, we're not okay with this. It doesn't matter, the party politics of this. We're not all right with it. It's too extreme. The fact that I would love to see Ted Cruz go packing, and same thing with Rick Scott in Florida. Oh. I'm not holding my breath for Florida, or, there's a long history of Republican investment in Florida that Democrats are a little behind the eight ball. I would say a lot behind the eight ball there with their infrastructure in Florida. But the ballot initiative there, Amendment 4, which would codify abortion rights and overturn their extremist 6-week abortion ban there, that again, it infuses the grassroots organizing for ballot initiatives that goes into making sure people know what's happening. It rallies people behind the issue. It keeps it at the forefront. That's why Ron DeSantis is trying to intimidate people down there, sending his election Gestapo team that he has to knock on people's doors who signed the petition to get the ballot initiative on the ballot this year. It's insane what they're doing. They have this website that's sponsored, taxpayer money, sponsored by the state, that's putting out misinformation to scare and fearmonger people into what that amendment actually means. It's what they're trying to do, all kinds of underhanded shit, because they know this is a losing issue for Republicans. Same thing in Missouri, and same thing in other states, that Nevada, like all these states that have abortion ballot initiatives. This is no good for Republicans. They know this is a terrible issue. So the battleground states are Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia. Because of Kamala Harris now, the Sun Belt is in play. That's why she spent two rallies in North Carolina. That's why she's been going to Georgia. These suburban women and suburban moderate voters are not okay with what Donald Trump is doing. And when you see him behave like he did at the debate, when you see what he continues to triple down on during these insane rallies, which was another brilliant thing by Kamala Harris, was to say, go watch his rallies, go to a rally. Like, you don't believe me? Yeah. I mean, his crowds are smaller and people are leaving because they're bored. I mean, that was brilliant. She's wove that all in. But it was like her communications team understands that these are issues that it's a threefold approach. And I think they're doing a great job at really using social media well.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ollie. Clean, fresh nutrition your dog needs in 5 flavors that they'll absolutely flip over. You don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real, whole foods with minimal processing is one of the best choices that you can make for their health. A perfectly portioned, whole fresh food diet has been proven to extend your pup's life by 2.5 years. And who doesn't want more time with their best friend? With absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ollie is made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. You see, because the time between Ollie's gentle cooking and your dog's chowing down is minimal, they don't need preservatives to extend shelf life. With 5 protein-first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ollie. So I want to be clear about something. I actually don't have a pet. I don't have a dog, but I do have a neighbor who has the absolute cutest cavapoo that goes crazy for me whenever she sees me. And by the way, her name is Luna. So here's what you need to do. First thing that you do is you fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz, and they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, the activity level, and other health information. Ollie crunches the numbers, and then they recommend the right recipe and the daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. Now, for the first-time users, Ollie will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Ali offers 3 meal plans to choose from. You really think that this is for a human? They offer 3 meal plans to choose from. So you can choose between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur puppy. I mean, they also have treats and supplements. So look, like I said, I don't have a pup, but I promise you that your dog will love it. In fact, I have a video of Luna chowing down the very first day that I brought it over to their apartment. So let me be clear now. Ali, they are offering a deal to let your pup taste test a personalized meal plan. So head right now to Ali.com and tell them all about your dog and use Cohen, and you'll get 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. So head to Ali, that's OLLIE.com, and enter code Cohen, that's me, COHEN, to get 60% off your first box. Again, that's Ali, OLLIE.com, and enter Cohen to get 60% off your first box. And they offer a clean bowl guarantee on their first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back.
But the difference between what the campaign has to do, because they have multiple fronts they have to fight, right? They have multiple issues they have to fight, different constituencies. That's why organizations like mine, like the Seneca Project, that focuses singularly on certain issues and certain demographics, that's what we do well. That's why when people support the PACs like mine, we're able to focus on this.
But I disagree. Good. I disagree. I actually believe that only on one part, that Florida is a battleground state. And I'm going to tell you.
I don't know if it's a battleground state.
I'm going to tell you why I say that. I think it's a battleground state, just like Nevada, Michigan, and Georgia, and so on. The reason why, something that Seneca Project actually touches on in a latent sort of way. The actions and the comments by Shady Vance, by Von Schitzenpants, are so fundamentally flawed that regardless of the political party that you ascribe to, you cannot go along with that. And I think Kamala Harris, her strategy, which I think so far has been absolutely brilliant in keeping that in the forefront. Whatever you think of Donald Trump's economic policy, it becomes secondary to the attacks on women, on reproductive rights, on IVF. Every single person that I know knows somebody who has gone through the IVF process, whether it's you, whether it's a friend, a family member. Everybody knows
coworker,
somebody.
Colleague. It's
Everybody
true.
knows somebody who's Haitian. Everybody knows somebody who is Black. We are the greatest melting pot in the world. And she is brilliantly keeping this Roe versus Wade overturn, the Dobbs decision, which, as you rightfully just said, doesn't just affect Roe versus Wade. The Dobbs decision also affects cases that people are less familiar with, but also equally important, like Bivens. That's a case that I right now have a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court of the United States on, that doesn't allow the government to take away your constitutional right because they want to. And people then see that along with the Supreme Court's recent decision on presidential immunity, and they're getting scared of Trump. But wait, there's more. You have the Obergefell case, which is the same-sex marriage case. And then there's another one, Blassingame, which is interracial marriage. I mean, do you understand, if you read, and they keep talking about Project 2025, the dangers in that 920 some odd page manifesto on unwinding the country as we all know it? Here's what I believe. I don't believe that there's a woman out there that could, in good conscience, I don't give a shit what they say in front of their husbands. I don't care what they say in front of their community at the pool or at the grocery store, or what they say when they're just doing a barbecue. I don't care. When you are alone, it's you, the ballot paper, and your God. And when you start saying to yourself, if it was anyone other than Trump, I would vote against Kamala Harris. But you got to admit, she's one tough girl. She's one bright woman, and she is one fierce warrior. And I believe that's why Florida, I really believe it.
That's okay. I mean, listen, I don't want to get my hopes up. I hope so. I've worked in Florida politics, and I was part of like the Republican efforts to do what they've done to kind of get their clutches into Florida politics and a stronghold there, and Democrats weren't keeping up. And so it's a little more difficult. And also it's just because Florida's a huge state. It's more expensive there. It is a lot going on there. But listen, I hope so. If Florida goes blue, it's over. I mean, it's over. That means it's going to be a blowout. So, I mean, we can all hold out hope. But your point about Kamala Harris and the way that she has prosecuted the case so far.
Warrior.
I was someone who was skeptical of her. I wasn't a supporter of hers the first time around when she ran in 2019. I was concerned whether she would be able to meet the moment if Biden had stepped aside. And I have to say that I'm so glad that I was wrong, that I was proven wrong, that she has not only stepped into the moment, she has exceeded and excelled. And she has clearly matured and learned as vice president and really come into her own. And we're seeing that. And I've been so impressed by her. I was in tears, emotional, watching her DNC acceptance speech in Chicago, just the history of the moment, the way everything was taking place, the patriotism, the energy, the enthusiasm, the normalcy, the compassion. Tim Walz was an amazing pick. He was brilliant. Another reason why we chose to name the ad Hope, because there was a double entendre once we found out his story and his wife and their fertility struggles and their beautiful miracle of a daughter, Hope. You hear in the ad, there's chants in the background, Hope. That was on purpose. But like all of it, like people are just craving the normalcy and the compassion on top of the competence. She's more than competent. And the double standard in the media, right? The double standard in the media where Trump gets away with saying all kinds of wacky, crazy shit that makes him unfit. But then, but Kamala Harris, she wasn't detailed enough in her policy. This isn't a policy freaking election, okay? It's ridiculous that the double standard that the media is, they have not learned from 2016.
This is an election that should be based upon character.
Character.
It's really a character. But
and competence.
Because you brought something definitively, look, that's not even a question here. So let me just then turn around and say this, because something that you also brought up, that Trump's rallies have consistently focused on his core base, these MAGA morons. But recent polling is even suggesting that he's losing support amongst all suburban women, as well as the military families. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you have a law enforcement family background.
Yes.
Right?
My husband's a federal agent. Yes.
Is a federal agent.
Yep. And my grandfather was captain of the police department in my hometown for 40 years. So yes.
So, do you think that Trump's refusal to broaden his appeal is not just a misstep, but gave Kamala the ability to grow in those demographics? Because like you said, she has seized the moment. She is more than just a candidate for the presidency of the United States. She is an inspiration, inspiration in multiple different arenas. One, amongst veterans. Two, amongst women's reproductive rights. Three, amongst women altogether, as the first female potential president of the United States, forgetting about the color of her skin. She gives hope, off the Seneca Project thing, she gives hope to every little girl out there growing up that believes that, well, even in third grade, I'm not going to run for class president because the president of the class should always be a boy.
Right.
She changes the mold forever.
It's so true.
She's an inspiration.
She really is. And as you know, I'm biracial. So, and I'm 49, I just turned 49. And, now there's so many more biracial families and children out there and little girls who look like me. And it's that's what it's supposed to be about, right? You mentioned earlier that we are a melting pot. This is what we are about. And Kamala Harris comes from a biracial background, and Trump attacking that as if it's somehow a negative goes to show you again his bigotry and his backwards way of thinking. And Kamala she's the future. She says we won't go back. That's right. We won't go back in so many areas for women, for people of color, for all of the just the inspirational things that make America great. Kamala Harris represents that. Her story is a great American story. I'm so glad that she brought up the fact that she comes from, a middle-class family, and her mom worked hard as a single mom after her parents were divorced to put her kids through school. And, what she did, she didn't have daddy give her a $400 million loan and then go bankrupt 6 times. Like, that's important to reminding people of that. And the hope and the inspiration, you look at, she doesn't have to do what Hillary did in 2016, which was constantly remind people that, this is historic and blah, blah, blah. We don't need to do that. Everybody else, we get the assignment. Kamala can go out there and just be presidential, remind people that she's capable of being president. And the fact that she doesn't disrespect our veterans like Donald Trump does.
Doesn't just disrespect veterans, the LGBTQ plus commercial.
Everybody else except for white Christian men, right? Donald Trump insults everybody but that group.
And white supremacists.
Correct. And the incels. Apparently he thinks he's going to expand his base by appealing to the incel bro culture that lives in like their mom's basement and listens to Joe Rogan. Like, you think that's the constituency that's going to help you win the election, Donald? No, it isn't. Okay. Because there are millions of other people who don't agree with that, regressive way of thinking and that racist way of thinking that are going to go out there and vote, particularly women. We say galvanize women, save democracy. That's our catchphrase here at the Seneca Project. It's going to be women, I firmly believe, who have had enough. And to your point earlier about the ballot box, we're about to start an initiative soon called My Ballot, My Choice, because it used to be my body, my choice. But now that privacy has been taken away from women. The privacy of the ballot box is still a sacrosanct place that women have, that no one can take that privacy away from them. That's right. No one has to know who you voted for. That's between you and your ballot. My ballot, my choice. That's something that women need to remember when they go and make that decision in November, because our lives literally depend on it. And so does our democracy.
So Tara, look, the hour goes by very quickly.
It does.
Here on Mea Culpa. I have one final question for you. It's, this is an important question, by the way, because it goes right to the heart of the Seneca Project. So as we're approaching now the final stretch of the election, what do you think are the critical issues that will sway the undecided voters? Key group. You think that Kamala can maintain this momentum? And what should she focus on to avoid? This is always the pitfall. Everyone keeps saying it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Any last minute shift in voter sentiment?
I think that she's got to start focusing a little bit more on the economic policy to kind of combat the Trump narrative here, that everything was so honky-dory under Donald Trump. That's their only card, really. And yes, were there some better economic metrics under him at some point? Yes. However, a major global pandemic happened and he botched that terribly. And that's what set our economy into a mess and inflation up, and the tax cuts and the spending were the highest deficit in the history of the country ever. So the Biden-Harris administration had to come in and fix it and clean it up. She actually made that comment during the debate early on about, well, we fixed what he left us. He did this and we fixed that. She's got to lean more into that, because the kitchen table issues really animate people, because that's their everyday concern, making sure they can pay the bills and take care of their families. So I hope that there isn't some type of economic crash or something happens in October that the Biden-Harris administration can be blamed for. So we have to be careful.
We already know that it looks as though there's going to be a reduction of interest
Yes.
rates, at least a quarter of a point, if not a half
Yes.
point, coming
Yes.
by the end of the month for October,
Yep.
which I think will help to spur things. We
Yep.
already know, if I hear one more MAGA idiot tell me that the price of gas was $1 less per gallon.
I know.
And I tried to explain to him, do you not understand economic principles?
So basic supply and demand, I know.
It's exactly supply and demand.
Yes.
You had COVID. People were not going to work because there was no work. Everything was remote. So you have a supply of gas goes up, right? You have demand goes down. What happens to price?
There's an excess. The price has to go down. I know, but if you have to go that far to explain it, their attention spans don't, go that far, and unfortunately, it can be exploited as, oh, well, gas prices were this then, they're this now. That's the fault of the president. That's the challenge with messaging this. But yes, all the economic indicators are that we're on the right track. Goldman Sachs, for God's sake, said that Donald Trump's plan is terrible with his tariffs and taxing and all of that, and that the economy would be better under Kamala Harris. That's big. They need to continue to get that message out there, and so far they are. So I think that they are continuing to show her common sense, competent approach, and compassionate. It's common sense, competency, and compassion. That resonates with the American people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. They need to take a page out of what Ronald Reagan did and give this.
And how is Seneca Project going to help to get that message out? Tell us what's next for the Seneca Project, and finish this episode off by telling how my listeners can help. Go to Seneca Project. Give your final pitch, please.
The final elevator pitch.
Important.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael. Look, we are concentrating on moderate women right of center in the battleground states. We are the type of organization that puts out hard-hitting content that women and the girl dads need to see, that gives them the permission structure to make the right choice and vote for Kamala Harris. Plain and simple. It's a binary choice. There is the alternative is unthinkable. And our content helps to put those messages in front of the people who are going to make that decision in those battleground states. So in order for us to do that, obviously we need funding. We need those donations to keep coming in for us so that we can, the more money we have, the more we can put those messages in front of the people who need to see them, from Arizona to Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. These are the states that need to see it. Georgia, that's what we can do. So that's our plan, to keep making that content, keep putting out there what's at stake, explaining to the women and in those states why they must vote for Kamala Harris. And we can argue about the, marginal tax rates later, but this is an existential threat that we can stop. We can stop this MAGA extremism. We can stop JD Vance and Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is, he's not a healthy guy. If God forbid he were to win, JD Vance is a heartbeat away from the presidency, and all of the losers and lunatics that Donald Trump surrounds himself with, from the Laura Loomers to the Johnny McAtees to the Charlie Kirks to these Christian nationalist pastors that think women should be second-class citizens. These are the people that come with Donald Trump and will be in the administration, the Stephen Millers of the world. You don't want these people in power, and it's up to us. We still have the ability to stop this, and it's ultimately up to us. So senecaproject.us is our website. You can donate there. Please follow us on all of our socials at Seneca Project US and help spread the word and spread the content. And together we can win.
Yeah. Well, Tara, thank you so much for joining me again on Mea Culpa. Congrats with that ad. Fantastic. Congrats with the groundbreaking of Seneca Project, especially with such an amazing right out of the box ad. Again, senecaproject.us. Please check out their website. Tara is also just a warrior in this cause. So thank you, Tara. Appreciate you as always.